Welcome to Bird's Nest, everybody. Today I'm finally going to set up our forge. Quite a while ago, Heather and I decided to get a forge and try our hand at some blacksmithing and hopefully some bladesmithing. It's quite an interest of both of ours, and we finally decided to do it early this spring. And here it is fall, and we're finally getting around to. We had a bunch of other projects to do, and I thought the last thing I'm going to do is actually set this up. So I'm finally getting around to it. I didn't do a separate unboxing. I mean, it's pretty simple. You open the box, take it out. One thing we did notice, I think it's on this end, when we unboxed it, I don't know if you can see right here, there was just a little dent. And this does come with, I think, 3 fire bricks. I ordered some extras I'm going to do some modifications to this in a future video. And one of our fire bricks was kind of broke. And not a big deal. I mean, that dent, it's only aesthetics, but Heather did contact the company, I think, and within like 3 days, they sent us a brand new fire brick and a nice little chunk of, this is 1095 high carbon steel. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, their customer service was amazing. They didn't have to do anything, but they did. So far, I'm very, very happy with this Mr. Volcano. So without further ado, the main reason this video is when I got this, I like to research everything, and YouTube for me is a huge source of information. Everybody has different ways of doing things, whatever, but I like to watch a lot of videos or read a lot of different forums, get a lot of different opinions so I can form my own informed, educated opinion. And it seemed like this was a really good middle-of-the-road place for us to start. American-made, which I liked. But the one thing, the instructions, and I have read through them, and I think it was GSE Smith, GSE something on YouTube. He did a video on his Mr. Volcano also, and it was one of the only, if not the only at the time, videos I could see on the setup. The directions are a little bit vague, and the further I got into it, I noticed there some different confusion on Rigidizer, refractory cement, the proper method, way to go about it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a video on the research that I have done. I've gotten on different forums. You know, if anybody sees anything that I'm doing wrong in this, by all means, put it in the comments. This is just from the information that I've gotten, how I've decided to do it. One thing that I am changing, and this was when I first looked at it, this one does have 1 inch of insulation. It comes with 1 inch. When you get into the upper end, I guess, they go, or people that custom make them, actually the majority of them have around 2 inches of insulation. Number one, you know, efficiency, less gas, it holds the heat in better. It allows you to reach higher temperatures for when you get into forge welding, making Damascus, that type of thing. I thought, you know what, if I can make it just a little bit more efficient, you know, less gas, especially with prices and everything going up, I'm going to do that. So what I've decided to do, I hope I don't regret it, I did order, and handling this, I should have a mask and everything on. I'm being gentle with it right now. I did get a piece of 1/2 inch, I think this is Lin, ceramic fiber. And I am going to just put an extra 1/2 inch just around this area. Not underneath. I don't want to raise this, the bottom of it, the brick bottom, I don't want to raise that up any. I just want to enclose this a little bit. I kind of put it in there and sized it out. Yeah, obviously it makes it a little bit smaller, but I think everything I'm going to work on isn't going to be any wider, or even probably as wide as the fire brick in here. And if I do something wider, I'll, you know, like a tomahawk head or something, then I'll just have to put it in, you know, differently. I hope I don't regret that, but I've thought about it a lot, and that's what I'm going to do. I think in the long run, it's going to help for cost of gas and hopefully be able to maintain my heat a little bit better and reach higher temperatures. So I'm going to get things a little bit better set up in here, and we'll take you on to the next step. I think the first thing I want to do is put some marks on here just for the orientation. To do this properly, I'm actually going to remove this this shell inside, and it might not make a difference, but I don't want to find out that it does. So I guess I'm a little, this is something I don't want to have to even attempt to try and do a second time. So I'll just put some tape there. I'll just mark this side as 1, and a little reference line there. So I just, obviously the seam is down here at the bottom below the brick. So that's 1. This side I'll just do 2. And I'll reference. That way I always know the orientation. The other thing I want to do is, as I mentioned, that 1/2 inch, that 1/2 inch that I'm gonna excuse me, additionally, that I'm gonna add, I don't want it underneath the brick. And once I put that in and then we add the cement, I want to make sure I have plenty of room for that brick to still slide in. If I come down too far, and then by the time you add the refractory cement, I don't know how thick that'll end up being. I want to make sure I've got plenty of room. So what I'm going to do is make a mark down below about 1/4 inch away, kind of straight up and down on both sides. When I take this out and lay it flat, I'm going to cut that other piece. You'll see it. I'm going to kind of put a little bevel on it so that just kind of lays in flat, and it'll give me plenty of room to still slide that brick in and out. Because that brick, the idea is that brick you can replace down the road if I ever get into forge welding or whatever using flux and damage it, just eats everything up. So, or these could crack. So I want to be able to get them in and out easily. So those are my references. My next thing is I'm going to take this shell out and lay it flat and get my next piece fit in. And when I get to that point, I'm just going to take this off. I'm not going to bore you with that, or excuse me, take this out, and I'll turn you back on for the next step. All right, so I got that out. Maybe I should have shown that. It's pretty easy. Just in the bottom where the seam meets, where it's rolled, I just picked one side up, overlapped them, and kind of collapsed it, because there are cutouts for the burner tubes that stick down there probably about 1 inch. And that way I was able to kind of drop that down and slide the whole thing out. So one thing I need to do quick is cut this one to size as far as length. So I can do that quick, and this isn't rocket science. If you notice, I do have my mask on now. I don't have my gloves, but so, and I'm just using a razor knife for that. So I've got it cut to length. Now the next thing, the front to back, is, remember, I want to put, I don't know how well you can see this, a little bit of a bevel cut on that. And maybe I'm just being too, lack of better terms, anal. I tend to do that. But I think it's going to serve its purpose in the long run. So I know that's where I want the cut on that end. Extend that through. And I'm going to, on the straight edge, like that. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball that bevel cut. So I don't know if you can see that, but there is a slight kind of bevel to that, which will allow it to maintain that space where that brick is going to set. So it doesn't interfere when it's rolled up. It should sit like that and not interfere. So I'm just going to mark the other side now and cut that, and I'll turn you back on. Okay, so I got the other side cut. You can see, hopefully, just a little bit of a bevel on both sides. I've got it all lined up where I need it. Now the last thing I need to do, I'm going to flip it over, keep everything where it's at. Is cut out for the burner tubes. You can see the little holes right here. I think I can just kind of right, well, I stand corrected. Heather's in the background working on something, and she's lifetime editing me, I guess. So she said, you know, if you're doing a how-to video, it'd be a good idea to go ahead, dry fit it, and show you how I do it. So I will do that, and actually I think that's going to be, in hindsight, a very good idea, because my construction background tells me if you lay something flat, when you make that into a radius, things can change. So let's see. We might have to do a little bit of altering, but I think you saw how I folded that up. I'm just sliding it in now. And I can look down here and line up my holes. Those look good. My marks lined up. Good. Get that bottom seam where it needs to be. But I think you can see, sure enough, I got it in there, and where I had it marked, these are now a little bit long, this inner layer, which means when I put my brick in there, it's going to be sitting, that's the one, it'll be sitting on top of this, and that's going to be way too close, I think, to that burner. I want it sitting down flat on the bottom. So now that I actually have that in here, that's like it's supposed to be, I still got my marks where my brick went, so I'm going to remark both ends, take it back out, cut it again, and then dry fit it one more time. I think you see the process just kind of fit and trim. When I cut these back, next time that brick should be able to sit in there flat in the bottom like it was meant to. So I'm going to do that. Thanks, baby.
You're welcome.
Okay, so there it is. That brick is still laying where it's supposed to be, and I've got a little gap on both sides that should be enough, more than enough, for as I build up that refractory cement, and still give me, you know, room to replace the brick, move it in and out. So lesson learned, dry fit. All right, so I'm going to take this back out and we'll do the next step. Okay, so the next step, we're going to be getting ready to apply the Rigidizer. The Rigidizer is just, I don't know exactly what it's made of, but basically it's almost like a primer to the wool. It kind of seals it off and forms a bit of a, like a crust I suppose like hairspray when it dries and it gets kind of crusty, which closes the pores and makes it easier then to apply the cement, the actual refractory cement. The first thing you want to do, I think this is called buttering. In these instructions it doesn't call that, but through my research, I think I learned that through Frosty. You know who you are if you haven't ever watched this. Thank you for all the input and advice on this. So I've just got a bottle of water. The first thing you want to do is wet the whole thing. And so I'm just going to follow directions. Okay, so I got this all pretty wet. I'm not sure exactly how wet, but that seems wet, a little more than damp. And now I'm going to start applying the Rigidizer. It says to use, I believe this is 32 ounces. Do not drink. And it says to apply this until the whole thing turns red, well, and use up the entire bottle. But of course my sprayer is going to quit working. Okay, 3 sprayer heads later, and I'm back in business. Make sure I'm getting and I am using this, I'm out in the garage. Got windows open. I've got pretty good cross ventilation, so because I don't really know what this is made of. So I'm going to wear my fingers out. I'll turn you back on when I'm done doing this. Okay, I used up as much of the bottle as I absolutely could. So I think I got it pretty good. And since I've never actually seen a video on this or seen it done, we'll learn together. But I went ahead and, you know, a little bit around the perimeter edges, anything that I could, I saturated. So this thing has got some weight to it. So same thing, I'm going to kind of roll it back up. Get rid of that. And side one. Slide it back in. Holes. Now one thing I didn't do, the directions say you can go ahead if you get to have the burners in there and fire up the burners for a few minutes. Well, I didn't set up the burners yet. Quite honestly, I think after my research, I think that's kind of a problem some people might run into, and that's trying to rush the process, letting every stage of this dry correctly. It's kind of like putting drywall mud on. Several light coats are better than one heavy coat, and if you put another coat over a wet coat that's not cured, the top dries, and as the top or the underneath layers are still trying to dry and it pulls it apart, that's when you can get excess cracking. So that's what I'm going to try and avoid. This might take days and days to dry. I might get lucky. Have it dry tomorrow. I've seen some guys put candles in them to help dry them out. But this is going to dry pretty hard, so at this point in time I want to make sure it's all pressed in tight around. Make sure my brick is still going to work just fine. And that, you know, obviously got wet and it compressed a little bit. I don't probably want to squish it too much. But, so that's it for now. I'm just going to let this dry, and when that happens, we'll go on to the next stage. So appreciate you sticking with me so far, and I'm looking forward to the next step with the refractory cement. All right, welcome back. This is day 2 of the forge, Mr. Volcano forge setup. It's been almost 24 hours that I applied the Rigidizer to the fiber, the ceramic fiber. And what I ended up doing last night was just setting up this little work light. It's a halogen light, so it gives off some heat. It's in the 60s today. I think it got into the upper 40s, 50s last night, a little chilly. So I just took some extra blanket that I had, closed off one end, and elevated it. If I remember correctly, heat rises, so my theory was that the heat would kind of push up. But if you look in here, that Rigidizer drying, and you can, I'm thinking when it dries, it actually it loses that real pink look. I don't know, but it's getting pretty, it's a good shell to it. So that's going to make it real nice when I apply that that cement to be able to brush it on, or the refractory cement. So I think all I'm going to do for now, I mean, that's definitely retaining heat. I'm just going to flip it around, elevate it, set that light up again, and let that then sit for 24 hours. So my theory is tomorrow around this time, in another day, it's going to be cured enough for the next step. So sorry, our chickens in the background are going nuts. Anyway, nothing more to do with it today other than continue to let it dry. I want to make sure that it's very dry and ready for the next step. I'm not in a rush for this. It's just going to take as long as it takes. So we'll see you later. Okay, everybody, it is day 3 of this Mr. Volcano forge setup, and I'm going to get right into it. So for one day after I applied the Rigidizer, I let it sit overnight, and I showed you how I put the little halogen lamp on one end, elevated the other, and then I swapped ends, and it is, I mean, it's crusty. It's pretty hard now. I think that's good enough for the next step. And the next step is applying the refractory cement. Now, the Mr. Volcano comes with 4 pounds. This is Satanite refractory. There are different refractory cements out there. Sorry, off the top of my head, I can't remember them. Some they withstand a little bit higher heat, or reflect a little better heat, or might be a little bit more durable for using flux and different materials. And there are some coatings that you can put on then on top of this to increase the overall performance of the forge. I might do that down the road, but I just need to get started. So 4 pounds of this, and they also send you a 1 pound bag for maintenance down the road. If you know you scrape some off or whatever, you can do a little bit of repair maintenance. Now the instructions do say, and I'm looking at the instructions. I have read all through these in case you're wondering. And it did say with the Rigidizer, it says to go ahead and fire it up and let it burn for about a minute, then let it cool down. Do this several times to remove the majority of water from the blanket. I think they're speaking more of, I mean, if you're going to do these steps consecutively back to back, since I'm letting it thoroughly dry naturally, I didn't. What I did do though is just took a little hand propane torch once I got it in there. I can't remember if I showed that in the video or not, and just applied a little bit of heat just to get it to crust a little bit, to set up so that it didn't sag. It seems like some people have said that it sags away from the shell, from the housing. By doing that crust and let it set up a little bit, I didn't get any of that. So I did do that. Now for the rest of this, it does say to do it in 2 coats. Mix up like 2 pounds, flip the forge on its upside down, do the top, let it sit, then flip it over and do the bottom. I'm actually going to do probably 4 coats. 1 to the top upside down, let it dry, flip it over, bottom, and continue so that the top and bottom each receive 2 full coats. And kind of go from there. Like I said, I just want to take my time with this, do it right the first time. They do recommend, I think, I'm not wearing a full respirator, but something. I imagine this dust isn't too good to breathe, like concrete dust or anything else. So first thing I'm going to do, I got my little deer processing scale, is measure out a pound. It does say for a pound to use 130 milliliters of water. And I don't know that, well, anyway, I converted it. It's 4.396 ounces, 0.54 cups. So yeah, somewhere in there for my measuring. You can do your own math, but so I got that zeroed out. Weigh out a pound. And I did weigh this bag. It is actually just a little over 4 pounds. So that's about a pound of that. And so it doesn't, I'm not going to dump that in on this so that it dusts all over. I'm going to go ahead and add my water. And then add that. And it says that you want a consistency of sour cream. So if you don't know the consistency of sour cream, I suppose it's similar to pancake batter. Gonna mix this up real well. Okay, so I've got this mixed up, as far as I'm concerned, pretty good, and you can see it's, I suppose, like thick sour cream. And I'm just gonna use a little disposable little putty knife. I did round the corners on it just a little bit. I don't want it digging in or tearing into anything. And what I'm probably gonna do, what I am gonna do, is use this to kind of get it in there, you know, the bulk of it, and then I just cut the end off a little disposable paintbrush so that I can get in there easier and kind of use that to spread it out evenly. So without further ado, and it does say to not to apply it to the metal. If you put it on the metal, kind of clean it off. I don't know.
Can I wield the great sword?
In just a minute. Can you wait till I'm done recording? Okay, now I'm just going to take my little brush and just try and even that all out. And if I scrape off a little extra, I'm going to use that then to kind of paint on to the outside. One thing I want to make sure I get well is, hopefully you can see this, is kind of getting it around the little burner tubes. So I think you get the idea of what I'm after here, what I'm trying to do. And this is actually working fairly well. Kind of brushing it. The main thing is just trying to make it somewhat even. And the reason, obviously, for upside down is so it doesn't continue to drip and create stalactites, mites, whatever. And my theory is the second coat won't, this is kind of filling a lot of voids and whatnot, so the second coat should go on a little easier. So I'm going to continue to do that. I think you can kind of see where I'm going with it there. Just kind of even it out, try and make it an even layer, and I'll let this sit overnight, and then we'll hit the next step. Okay, well, it's officially been probably over a week since I began this. I did, I think when I left off, I was just alternating coats between the top and bottom, rotating it. I got the last coat on. It worked out perfect. That one bag that they had, the 4-pound bag, I mixed it up in 4 separate 1-pound increments, and anyway, it worked out great. So I knew it was going to be sitting for a while. It's been getting chilly at night. So I just took a heat bulb, kind of wired it up there, and then elevated the back. You know, heat rises evidently, and so I think it's actually pretty darn well cured. But they still recommend, you know, doing a test fire, you know, fire it up for about a minute, let it cool back down just to ensure that. So today I'm going to finalize this. I am going to hook up the burner assembly, hook it up, and fire it up. So let me get all that stuff out and we'll pick up where we left off. Alright, so I wanted to show you the end. I don't know how well that's going to show up, but I think it turned out pretty good. I've got no stalactites, mites, whatever, things drooping around it. That worked pretty good, flipping it back and forth and doing several light coats. And it's, I mean, it's pretty hard. All that kale wool, ceramic wool, whatever is all, it's sealed up well on both ends. So I think we're good to go. Now the instructions aren't real explicit on this, so maybe a little bit of common sense applied, and always, you know, a picture. I just found a picture of the Mr. Volcano all set up. That's what I'm going off. I think most importantly in the directions it does say when you're placing the burner tube to place it extending past about an 1/8 inch or so past the ceramic or the liner. So I'm going to start with that. See where that puts me. And I kind of took all these set screws and stuff on here. I went ahead and kind of pre-threaded them just a little bit, just to make sure, because it's got some, you know, some paint or whatever in the threads. I just wanted to make sure they go in there a little easier. So since I'm going to have the burners come out this way, there's a little set screw to hold it in place. I'm going to put that on the opposite side just to make it easier to access with the Allen wrench. And then I'm just going to eyeball in there about an 1/8 inch past. Almost flush. Start right there. Tighten this guy down. Snug it up. Alright. Rinse and repeat on this side. Yeah, it's been a same thing. flush, just a little bit past. There's always something. Winter comes on, we have the winter coop, the chicken coop winterized and blah blah blah. Oh, the next thing will be the choke tubes. These will, what you slide up and down. It's basically like a carburetor. It's fuel, propane, and air. So it's all about fuel and air mixture. The richer, the more fuel. You can, by increasing the pressure, you're going to get hotter flames. You don't want it too much oxygen to oxidize more, especially if you're doing like forge welding and whatnot. This is all stuff that I'm going to be learning, so don't quote me on any of it. But so for now, I'll just set those. I want to do this. I'm going to have the burners come in there. I'll put those on this side too. I'm just going to put them about flush to the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and put the burners in while I'm at it. Just make sure there's no debris on the end there. Slide that in. These are handy dandy little included Allen wrench. And I'm sorry if this is boring. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but it's just kind of the process I'm doing that. Just eyeballing that perpendicular to the 90 degrees and just snug those up. I'll take my manifold or my little splitter here. Straighten this out, all the kinks out, making sure not to crimp it too hard. Okay, and as far as hooking these up, it's my understanding anyway, I always have, when you've got brass on brass and you've got a tapered nipple or whatever, you don't Teflon these, because the actual seal, it seats coming into the female cupped end to the male to that end. That's actually what's gonna get your seal. So keeping that in mind, I want to make sure there's no chunks or debris in there. Make sure it's cleaned up. Visually inspect that there's no burrs or anything on there. Same thing with this end. Make sure there's no okay. So one. Gosh, it's almost like it was made to do this. Make sure you're not cross-threading. That's fairly snug. That's fairly snug. This one's a little skinnier. Just snug it. And I'm thinking that's good. So now I'm going to take this, the first time I fire this up, hopefully I'm just going to use it in the garage. We'll see what kind of heat it gives off. I got good ventilation in here in the shop area, but the first time, obviously, I'm going to fire it up outside, see what this monster does. So let me get this moved out, get it hooked up to some propane, fire it up. See you in a bit. Okay, I've got it outside. This is going to be the cart that we use. We can wheel it in and out or around. I'll probably attach some little tongs loops, and that'll be upcoming videos, any upgrades or customizing I do. Anyway, got it hooked up to the propane tank. This does have obviously individual on-off valves for the gas. That does allow you to just burn one burner if you so choose. But what I want to do, if these are working correctly, if it's shut off, these are both in the off position, I'm going to go ahead and turn the gas on and check where we hooked up these the inlets here. I want to check those for any gas leaks. So I'm going to open the propane tank up, crank up the pressure, and it says when I first start this up I want it at 5 pounds, but I think that's when the nozzles are open. So I know I got pressure to them. I don't smell or hear anything, but there's just some dish soap and water. I'm going to put it on there and look for any bubbles to blow. If there's anything leaking out of there, they'll bubble up. I don't see anything. I think we're good. So now the dangerous part. We'll back this pressure back off. Open these up. I can hear gas. Now I want to crank this up to 5 pounds slowly. It's firing. This up to 5 pounds. That's kind of barking at me. I don't know if up a little bit, or they're evening out a little bit. Can you hear it starting to mellow out? But it does say just to run it for about a minute. Make sure you're curing it little by little. So I think it's just going to take some playing around. Now one thing, I don't know exactly how everybody's supposed to shut it off, but I'm going to shut it off at the tank and let it starve itself for fuel and burn out that way. Just let it go out, purge all the gas out. You can see a little smoke coming up. I'm sure it's got some oils, factory oils, whatever it's burning off. And that is, I don't know if that's normal to have it turn all black like that. Maybe that it turns it like that and burns off, but anyway, it works.
It works.
It works. We officially got the forge running, so it's going to take me a while to kind of play around with it, get the blocks in there and learn how to adjust the fuel air ratio. But anyway, I would say mission accomplished. Successful mission.
Success.
Baby, we finally got
did it.
Heather's behind the camera. We finally got our forge up and running.
All right. I'm ready to pound some steel.
Yeah, we are. We got more today. So anyway, like I said, there weren't a lot of setup on the Mr. Volcanoes. I read a lot of different social platforms and websites and got a lot of input, and at some point you just kind of put all your information together and use some common sense. But as far as, I think the biggest thing that I've seen people confused on, and I was confused, was the Rigidizer versus a refractory and how you do it. So hopefully this clears up that for a few people. You know, this is the Mr. Volcano, and no, we're not sponsored or anything. This is just what we have. But I would assume that this process is pretty standard for about any gas forge you'd set up, as far as Rigidizer and applying the refractory. The most importantly is that KO, you know, safety, wearing a mask, respirator of some sort, protecting your hands from the fibers, and getting that well good and sealed up. You don't want to be breathing that. I think that's the number one factor. So anyway, I hope this has helped anybody somewhere along the line. It's been a fun process. I've learned a little bit. I can't wait to actually start using it, and hope you enjoyed this video. If so, subscribe. We'll have more forging stuff come up, and improvements to this, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, hope you enjoyed. Give a thumbs up. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.